evening and welcome back to Profiles. In the studio this evening we have with us Gabrielle Gache. Gabrielle, just before the break we were talking about your company, Power of Words, and the work that you do with, I use the word coaching tentatively, but coaching people within a corporate environment to be able to communicate well with others and to achieve what they want to achieve on a professional basis. Talking about that professional basis and within Gibraltar specifically, because obviously you work in Malta, you work in the UK, you work in the Channel Islands and here. So I think you're probably able to give a good viewpoint. A lot of people that you'll be dealing with will be women, and they talk about hitting a glass ceiling. Would you say that the glass ceiling is any thicker here in Gibraltar than it is perhaps in other places? Is it true? Is it in the mind that women can achieve what they want to achieve and they're not actually being held back just purely for being a woman? Or is there an element of truth within it that we maybe need to modify our behaviour in order to be taken seriously?
So we're in southern Spain, and I work in Malta as well, and there's very much the Latino mentality, and we over here are conditioned in a particular way. In the UK, the conditioning is slightly different, and in the Channel Islands, again, slightly different. As far as the glass ceiling is concerned, this is something that has been very close to my heart as I've kind of evolved through my career. And I started off in financial services in an office of 40 people, 39 blokes and myself. So very, very close to my heart. And it was at the time of Maggie Thatcher, and I didn't become a bloke, but I took on board a lot of the kind of macho, go-get, warrior type mentality. And it didn't feel right, because I'm not a bloke, apart from anything, I'm not a man. In the Latin countries, so Malta, and probably less so in Malta actually, because the education, they've got the university and things are slowly shifting over there. But certainly in Gibraltar, I think the conditioning is that women tend to have their babies younger than they do in the UK. And the mentality of being a good mum and working, bringing in some money is very much part of how we work over here. Also because it's a community, you tend to have the grandparents support network. What I realised early on is that all of these guys that I worked with had their wives or their partners back at home. And I remember saying to my parents when I was in my early 20s, I need a good wife. I just need a good wife, because it's that support system. And you've got a great support system here because of the abuelos and grandparents and aunts and uncles and what have you. The glass ceiling very much is, for many, a self-fulfilling prophecy. It becomes your truth is what you believe to be true. And if you don't believe that you have a ceiling, that you can just keep going and keep going and keep going, you can. And I do work with a number of senior CEOs who are women. There aren't that many of them over here, but those that are, they are really breaking some of their beliefs around what's possible, and also showing other people in their field that it is possible. I think there aren't that many role models, and certainly when I was growing up, I didn't have any role models of women who were running their own businesses and running their homes and all of the things that make for a healthy life. And the more of us that are out there, the easier I think it is for the next generation to say, oh, it is possible. But when we were children, most of us did not have high-powered mums.
Well, yeah, and it's true. And we refer to women as she's juggling the kids and the house and the job. We don't really ever refer to men in senior roles as juggling anything.
No.
They have the luxury of sort of being single, having a single focus. So
Absolutely.
I think to a certain extent it's harder sometimes for women to be able to do justice to each of those things. But it's interesting to hear what you have to say about that.
It's also fascinating because our brains, women's brains and men's brains, are actually physically different. So women tend to be more likely to generalise things. So if they've got a problem, if their child is ill, it will affect all aspects of their life. Whereas men's brains are slightly different. So where you've got the two parts of the brain, the bit that connects it in men generally is thinner than in women. So men are more able to compartmentalise because that's physically how their brain is put together. So when you kind of begin to understand that it's okay, it's part of how we're made up, then it's a matter of finding strategies to deal with that, either as a bloke or as a woman, because there are strategies that, if anyone has done it before, there is a way of doing it. And it's just finding out the best ways of doing these things for you that's going to work in your own circumstances.
And it is a difficult thing, obviously, when you do have lots of other things in your life that you have to quantify. Perhaps when you're a bit more mature and you're going through your career and you've through the teenage years with your children and so on, there's lots of things to take on. But for younger women too, there's much to be said about the way in which, there's lots of, we're so politically correct now about saying what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in terms of the workplace and so on. But it's very clear that to a certain extent, we, as women, we have to maybe take a little bit of responsibility for the way in which we behave perhaps within the workplace. It's all very good and well, so it's my right to dress like this or to behave like that. But I'm sure that your teachings, this sounds like a religion, but I'm sure that, the process of that, is that a factor, the way in which we present ourselves with...
Very much so, very much so. And you know for yourself that if you see someone dressed in a particular way, you immediately make assumptions about that person. And we all do that first initial contact. We make a judgment. When we first met, we would both have made an assumption about each other. It's then testing those assumptions. So one of the things that we talk about in some of our trainings is how do you dress? And even going into basic retail stores, business dress for women back in the 80s did not exist. It's only now that you get the corporate suits, women's jackets now, fantastic array of them. Back in the day, that didn't happen. So the choices are there now. It's a case of, are you aware of how to use it? Because there is a hierarchy of dress that creates authority. And it's a case of, do you want to create authority? Do you want to come across as being in command? Or are you happy to be a little bit softer? And that becomes important if that's something that matters to you. So for me, being more feminine is really, really important. But also having the strength, because I truly believe that the feminine energy is very vulnerable, but it's very, very powerful. And when you look at businessmen who are really, really good at what they do and very successful, they have that softness, they have that strength, and they have that softness. So I personally, I believe that as human beings, we have that yin and yang, we have the masculine and the feminine, and it's finding that balance that works for you so that you can portray the person that you are.
Some people might say, I actually agree with you. Some people might say, though, that to a certain extent, overanalyzing these things and perhaps modifying our behaviour, we could be perhaps accused of manipulating others around us in terms of how we behave, how we would respond to that.
Yes, there are loads of people out there who are manipulating you. Marketing is manipulating. It's about, are you doing it with integrity? And that's down to you as an individual. When you know the information, how you use it is the integrity. And some people will use it and they will manipulate it. Supermarkets that create the floor to look that it's longer so that you walk more slowly. we are being manipulated. This is the PC. We are being manipulated left, right and centre. We are being hypnotised left, right and centre. We hypnotise ourselves. I can't do it, I can't do it. And it becomes your truth, you can't do it. Or, I can do it. I'm not quite sure how, but I can do it and I'm going to find a way. You're more likely to find a way. So, yes, there is a manipulation, but are you doing it with integrity? For you, because it's who you are and it's part of you fulfilling your potential. So, yes.
Yes is the answer to that one.
Yeah, but it's what's the intention behind it?
Your motivations behind.
Absolutely.
And of course, real success. I mean, there's success within the corporate world, but real success. I mean, surely true happiness isn't just achieved by your professional success. Are there people that you sometimes work with and you think, you're just not getting this? This isn't just about the office?
So you talk about manipulation, happiness, massive business, massive business. You have to have the car to be happy. You have to use this detergent to be happy. You have to wear these clothes to be happy. Happiness is within. Success is within. It's not something that you get. It's not something that you chase. Love is not something you get. We have it. We're born with it. And it's how we keep in touch with that part of who we are, because it's in all of us, every single one of us. We just sometimes forget that it's there or have been conditioned that we haven't got it. Disney. I need my prince. Why do I need my prince? They're not the other half of me. I'm whole. You're whole. Every single person is whole. And it's how you keep your wholeness and how together you create more rather than lack, which is very often where the manipulation comes, to believe that we haven't got enough, that we haven't got it all, that we haven't got happiness, that we haven't got love.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I think we could talk about this for literally hours, and sadly we've come to the end of the show.
Shame.
Thank you so much for coming
Naomi.
on, and brilliant to hear about the work that you do. It must be varied, and I should imagine you meet some really interesting people.
People are fascinating, love them.
So you have to promise to come back and give us an update on
pleasure.
the progress of Power of Words and everything else that's going on in your work in Gibraltar too. Thank you again. And thank you for watching. Join us next week on Profiles.